This is Whisper from History, where forgotten voices rise again. May 13th, 1985. In an ordinary neighborhood of Philadelphia, the sun rose like any other day. Everything seemed normal. But just hours later, something happened that no one could ever forget. Come with us as we walk through the story of a group forever remembered as the Move movement. In May of 1985, a quiet neighborhood in West Philadelphia awoke to the sound of helicopters circling above. It was a Monday morning, the kind of day when children should have been walking to school and neighbors tending to their gardens. But this day would not end with ordinary routines. Instead, it would be remembered as the day the government of the United States dropped a bomb on its own citizens. The group that became the target of this unprecedented assault called themselves Move. Founded in the early 1970s by a man who took the name John Africa, Move was more than a political organization. Its members lived communally, rejected modern conveniences, and advocated for a return to a more natural way of life. They were vocal about animal rights, the environment, and their disdain for the system they believed thrived on exploitation and oppression. But the group's uncompromising lifestyle and confrontational protests often put them at odds with city officials and law enforcement. By the early 1980s, tensions between Move and the city of Philadelphia had reached a boiling point. The group occupied a row house on Osage Avenue, where they fortified their home with makeshift bunkers and a loudspeaker system that blasted their political messages at all hours. Neighbors complained of noise, of trash piling up, of confrontations spilling into the street. For the city government, it became not only a matter of public safety, but also an embarrassment. The mayor of Philadelphia at the time, Wilson Goode, was the city's first black mayor. He faced an impossible situation, a group that many saw as dangerous militants entrenched in a neighborhood, and a police force led by Commissioner Gregor Samber that was demanding action. The police had already clashed violently with Move once before. In 1978, when an armed standoff ended with the death of a police officer and the imprisonment of several Move members, the memory of that day haunted both sides, and both knew that another confrontation could be even worse. On May 13, 1985, city officials made their move. At dawn, police surrounded the Move compound with armored vehicles, floodlights, and more than 500 officers. They carried arrest warrants for Move members, accusing them of weapons violations and child endangerment. A loudspeaker barked out an ultimatum: come out peacefully or face the consequences. Inside, the members of Move refused to surrender. They shouted back that they would never give up, that the system had no authority over them. Children huddled with their parents in the basement as the standoff escalated. Hours passed. Negotiations went nowhere. By late morning, the police had decided to force them out. Fire hoses blasted the row house. Tear gas canisters rained down. Explosions shook the block as officers tried to break through the fortified bunkers. But Move would not yield. Gunfire erupted from both sides. Neighbors ducked behind curtains, their homes trembling with each burst of ammunition. What began as an eviction had turned into urban warfare, and then, in the afternoon, came the decision that would burn itself into American history. Commissioner Samber authorized a plan that seemed unthinkable: to drop an explosive device onto the roof of the Move house. Police had obtained a satchel charge made of C4 plastic explosives, provided by federal agencies. At 5:27 p.m., a police helicopter hovered over the row house and released the bomb. The explosion tore through the roof, collapsing bunkers and sending flames shooting into the sky. For a moment, officials believed the plan had worked, but almost instantly, the fire began to spread. The row house ignited like dry kindling, and within minutes, the blaze leaped from one home to the next. The neighborhood was built of tightly packed wooden structures, and the fire spread with terrifying speed. What shocked the world was not only that a bomb had been used, but that the city allowed the fire to burn. Firefighters who stood ready with hoses were ordered to hold back. The intention, officials later claimed, was to use the fire as a tactical weapon to flush out the occupants. But the flames did not stop at Move's doorstep. They consumed house after house, block after block, until more than 60 homes were reduced to ash. Inside the Move house, chaos turned to horror. 11 people, including 5 children, were trapped. Some tried to escape, but gunfire drove them back. The basement filled with smoke and heat as the flames raged overhead. Neighbors watched helplessly as children's cries pierced the roar of the fire. By nightfall, their voices were silent. When the smoke finally cleared, the scale of the destruction became undeniable. An entire neighborhood lay in ruins. Families returned to find nothing but rubble and charred foundations where their homes once stood. 11 bodies were pulled from the ashes, 5 of them children who had never had a chance to grow up. Only 2 survivors emerged from the inferno: Ramona, Africa, an adult member of the group, and a young boy named Bertie, Africa. Their accounts painted a picture of desperation, of people trapped between fire and gunfire, with no escape. The public reaction was swift and outraged. News footage of the burning block aired across the nation, showing scenes more reminiscent of a war zone than an American city. How could this happen in Philadelphia in 1985, under the watch of a government sworn to protect its citizens? For many, the Move bombing became a symbol of excessive force, of a government willing to sacrifice innocent lives for control. Mayor Good faced fierce criticism. His decision to let the fire burn would haunt his legacy. Commissioner Samber resigned, but neither he nor any city official ever faced criminal charges for the deaths. An official commission later condemned the city's actions as reckless, irresponsible, and unconscionable. Yet for the survivors, no condemnation could bring back the lives that were lost. The Move bombing also raised painful questions about race and power in America. The victims were black. The neighborhood destroyed was largely black. Many asked whether the city would ever have unleashed such force in a wealthier or whiter part of town. The tragedy deepened distrust between communities of color and the authorities who claimed to serve them. In the years that followed, the site of the bombing remained a scar on Philadelphia's landscape and its conscience. Rebuilt homes were plagued with construction problems, and many families never returned. The survivors of Move continued to speak out, demanding accountability, but their voices were often drowned by the indifference of time. Only decades later did the city formally apologize for its actions. Even then, apologies could not erase the memories of burning homes and silenced children. What makes this event so haunting is not just the scale of destruction, but the precedent it set. The use of military-grade explosives against American citizens, sanctioned by local government, blurred the line between policing and warfare. It revealed how quickly a government, when threatened, could turn its power inward, against the very people it was meant to protect. For the families who lived through that day, the Move bombing was not an abstract lesson about history. It was the loss of their homes, their loved ones, their community. For the children who never made it out of the flames, it was the end of futures that would never be written. Even now, the echoes of May 13, 1985, linger. They echo in the charred bricks that once lined Osage Avenue, in the memories of neighbors who watched their block burn, and in the voices of those who still ask how a government could drop a bomb on its own people. It is a question with no answer that can heal the wound, but it is a story that demands to be remembered, so that the fire of that day is never allowed to burn again. Even today, in the streets of Osage Avenue, the charred walls still echo with the memories of those burned lives, memories that may never be forgotten. This was another haunting journey into dark history. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and explore our dark history playlist for more untold secrets waiting to be uncovered. This video is narrated by an AI voice, script and editing done by human.